my name is Kelly Steve, and I will be providing the parent feedback report for Colby, as I was recently the examiner for when he took the WIA test abbreviated, and this test occurred on October 13th, and the purpose of him taking this assessment was both for my course requirements, for my psychological testing class, for my special education degree, but also to determine his eligibility for the gifted program at his school. So before I get started on describing the results to you, I'm going to tell you about the types of scores that I'll tell you about in the report, so it'll be easier to understand, as well as I'll also give you information about the various subtests on this report. So let's go ahead and get started by talking about the age equivalent, which is the score for which his raw score is the median for all students in that age group. So for example, an age equivalent of 9 would show that his raw score is the median score for all 9-year-olds who took the test. The other score that I'm going to tell you about is the percentile rank, which is the percentage of individuals whom he scored the same as or better than on the test. So percentile rank of 70% would show that he did the same as or better than 70% of the other students of his age who took the test. So I'm going to get started now telling you about the 3 subtests that he took. And these subtests were the word reading, the numerical operations, and the spelling subtests. For the word reading subtests, he was expected to read aloud as quickly as possible from a list of words, and when I was scoring it, it is based on his word reading accuracy, as well as there are also qualitative observations for self-correction and his word reading automaticity, whether it took him a long time to sound out a word or whether he was able to read it just by looking at it. Our next subtest is the numerical operations subtest, where he is expected to solve written calculation problems using the 4 basic operands of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. The spelling subtest assesses his ability to spell dictated words, and he will also be required to use context clues to determine which homonym to use for some of the words. We're going to get started again in the same order, describing the results of each of the subtests. So, for the word reading subtest, his age-based percentile was 88%, and his age equivalent was a 12-year-old at 0 months. Through his performance on this subtest, Colby demonstrated that he had wide content knowledge in the areas of math, science, and social studies, as he was able to read the words from these domains without hesitation. And for many of these words, he also was able to use words that were within the word, like on, instead of phone. So he may need to work on using root words, for example, yet it was impressive the number of times he was able to read multi-syllable words, and the only problem that he had with reading these longer words was determining where to put the stress, or which syllable. And this is probably based on the fact that he and many other 4th graders struggle with determining whether to use the long or the short vowel in a certain syllable. But Colby did not need to self-correct any of his errors, and he also was reading at a good pace without having to stumble over his words. So for the next subtest, which was the numerical operations subtest, his age-based percentile was a 91%, and his age equivalent was 10 years and 8 months. Specifically during this test, Colby was able to perform 2 simple log division problems and was only off by 1 digit in the second problem. He also excels with simple multiplication facts to a times table, and he had a little bit of difficulty multiplying 3 numbers by 3 numbers, something that's not expected of 4th graders. And in all the problems they did, Colby did not show his work except for addition and subtraction problems that required borrowing or carrying. And Colby also made a few mathematical errors, yet knew the structure of how to solve each problem. And other problems that he was able to do was subtracting fractions with like denominators, as well as adding 2 decimals less than 1. Finally, the spelling subtest showed he had an age-based percentile of 90%, and his age equivalent was 11 years, 8 months. And he did really well in his spelling of words that included silent letters, and he also did well distinguishing between homonyms with the context clues that were provided in the given sentences. He also did well with words that included blends such as wa and ga, and he sometimes even overgeneralized the use of these blends and maybe even put ga in some words that did not include this blend. He also did not recognize the rule of doubling the ending consonant at times, but this is also a problem that many fourth graders struggle with, and he was most likely to make errors at the ending of words instead of in the beginning or the middle. Just a few behavior observations I saw throughout is that Colby seemed to maintain interest and motivation in doing the assessment throughout, and he also did not become frustrated when he knew he was unable to read a word quickly or he was unable to solve a math problem quickly. He still kept at it, which was really good to see the persistence. I do have a few suggestions for home and school observations that I'm going to finish up with, and then after that I'm going to ask for your questions. So suggestions for what we could do to help him in school include having him show his work in math and checking his work. And this is one strategy that we'd like to see him use in all areas, where he can also be reading a word to make sure that it makes sense, or making sure his spelling matches what he has seen in print. Although it is great that Colby is able to do all these problems so quickly, it may also be helpful for him to take a little more time to improve the accuracy, because I know that he knows how to do these problems. He just may be rushing through them sometimes to get done. And something else that we're looking at is seeing whether he is good for the gifted program, and that'll take a meeting between me and our gifted program coordinator to come up with the final outcome there. And two ways that you can help him at home would be to, first of all, encourage him to keep challenging himself. So, for example, when you're in the grocery store, you can have him coming up with the estimated total of what you've bought so far, or determining what juice is a better unit price. And you can also have him continue to help his sister with her homework and just be able to explain the skills that he already knows. He can also explain some skills to you at the dinner table and what he has learned at school, and you can also encourage him to expand upon these skills by sharing your own knowledge or by encouraging him to research to find out more about these interests that he may not have had time to do during school. So that is it, and do you have any questions? Yes, one question is how will the gifted program help him? So the gifted program will be able to help him find peers with similar intellectual abilities, and so that they are able to chat about their similar interests, and that they are able to make interesting discoveries that they would not be able to make in the general classroom, and they're also able to enrich their own interests, similar to what I described to you to possibly have him do at home. And any more questions? So how do his scores compare to those of his peers? That is a great question, but unfortunately I cannot answer that for you due to confidentiality restraints, and also the fact that we have not tested all of these students in his classes. What I can tell you is that he is in the top level math and reading classes for 4th grade, and that we're even considering moving him to 5th grade math or reading for him to be further challenged and not to get bored during class. So that is about all that I can tell you regarding that, but we will be testing other students, and the percentile rank is a good way for you to see how he compares to other 9-year-old students at the moment. Any other questions? Nope, thank you very much. Thank you so much for your time, Mrs. Middleton, and this concludes the Parent Feedback Report.